All right. So today what I want to talk about is how you can use React. All right. So today I want to talk. All right. So today what I want to talk about is how you can use the React context to manage the state of your application using the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript. So basically, this came up because I had a couple of questions about how do I um, manage my view or my layers inside of my React application, right? Now I've done a few videos on this before using Create T3 app, just a regular React application, using things like Redux, and I think I've done some other pieces and how you can manage state in your app, right? Now let's say you're not going to use Redux, you just want to use React context. You can do that, and you can save your view and your layers and everything directly in your context and then expose them to the rest of your application. Now, you might want to do this for certain cases where you don't want to use the widgets or the UI specifically of the widgets that comes with the Maps SDK for JavaScript. Maybe you want to build your own components using a component library of your choice. That way you can kind of customize the way you want everything to look. So for example, I've got this Mantine component library for React. It's a really cool library. It actually has quite a bit of components, right? I mean, 100 plus components here. It's even got a rich text editor, date pickers, a carousel, and a bunch of other really useful components you might want to take advantage of in your app. So maybe you're building an application with React around this and you want to use something like that, right? What you can do is you can actually go and look at the view models for things. So say, for example, let's look at something like the compass widget, right? So if you go to the compass widget, we have the widget itself, but we also have a view model for the compass widget. So we come here, compass view model, and it's got a whole API of its own, right? So our widgets use view models to do all the business logic and stuff. So you can take advantage of this for your applications too. You're going to want to use the context in React to do something like this. And I'll walk you through so you can see what it's going to look like. But here's the shell of we want to build. Right, so I have my header. My map is going to go here, and then here are my buttons, right? I'm going to have a compass. I'm going to have a home button. And I'm going to have my navigation buttons, right? My zoom. Zoom in, zoom out. All right, so we'll have that stuff here. So let's get that wired up and see what's going to look like. So when you're doing Mantine, for example, let's see if I come to get started, and you look at how you want to build a Mantine application. Let me see if I do this right here. All right, so what's telling you want to do is you want to give it a provider, and then you're going to provide some properties to it. And you're going to wrap the app in that provider, right? Which is essentially what we want to do. This means that everything that all of the CSS or any styles and stuff that are part of this component library are going to be provided to your React application. That's what we want to do, but for the map component stuff, right? So let's go over here and let's look at what, all right, so I have a map context here, right? Actually, let's look at the main. So I could do it here, but I actually think I'm doing it in the app.tsx file instead, right? So what I'm doing here is I have my Mantine provider, and I have my app shell, and I wrap everything up. Now I've already got the pieces here for the map. They just don't do anything yet. So what we want to do is we actually want to take a look at the map provider here, which currently I'm not using just yet. So what does the map provider look like? All right, so what I want to do is that these are going to be the properties of the map context, right? It's going to have a view property on here. It's going to be the view that I want all of my components of my application to have access to. And I have a function called load map. And this is how I'm going to initialize map creation, and I'm going to update the view that's in my context. So what I do here is I have a provider that I'm going to create. I'm going to use state of React to go ahead and create a state object. So I have a view and I have a setter method called setView. And I need to do something here for my load map function, which I am providing to my provider here, right? So let's go ahead and get this set up in the app first. Oops, wrong app file. And let's go ahead and wrap everything here. So I'll put this over here. Okay, so now what I need to do is I actually need to I need to make the provider do something, right? Because if I come over here, still no map, nothing that we can see, right? So let's go ahead and do something in our provider. So let's go to context. And what I want to do is in the load map function, what I want to do is first I want to do is I want to check to see if I've already created a view. If I've created a view, I don't want to create another one, right? So what I'll do is I'll just say if view return. Super easy, right? So if I have not created a view, then I want to go ahead and create one. So I can do this because what I'm going to do is I have a utility that I provide in almost all my applications. You've seen me do this a number of times. I have this like a module that I use that's going to handle all the interaction with the ArcGIS Maps SDK of JavaScript. It's going to go ahead and create my map view for me. It's going to create my layers, and it's going to return the map view, and it's going to do all the cool map creation stuff you might expect, right? So that's what this little utility is going to do. So let's come back to my context here. So I want to dynamically import that. So that provides a function called init, and we do dynamic import. Okay, so now that I have my init method here, I can go and say that I want to, I know that init method is going to return a view, so I can just call set view, and I'll call the init method, and I need to pass the container. Bam, there we go. So now if I come over here, still no map, because I haven't called this load map method yet, right? So let's go ahead and do that in a map component that I have here. And let's go check for map. Here we go. Okay, so in this map component, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the use context method. And again, we have the documentation right here from React and how to use context. And I've got a use effect here. This use effect has dependency on the map ref, which I am setting here. It's this little div element, right? And the function load map, just, you know, to make sure that load map method is available from the context. Okay. So in the use effect method, what I can do is I can say that if, come on, if I can type if mapref.current and load map, because when the context first loads, I haven't quite set that load map method yet. So, but the next run it will. So if those are both available, then I'm going to call the load map method with mapref.current. All right, so now this map component should display a map. Come on, it's going. It's a little slow. There we go. Okay, so here's my map, and it's going to have a layer in it. The layer's taking a while to load. Here we go. These are power plants, so it's a pretty big layer. Takes a little bit to load. Okay, so here's my map with the plants, but my buttons don't currently do anything, right? So let's go ahead and do the zoom button first, just to get an idea of what something like that's going to look like. And to do that, let's go ahead and look at the zoom view model. Right, so here's the zoom view model. And let's see what kind of properties we have available for it. Okay, so here I've got the skeleton for the zoom widget built up. It has the icons, everything, already using it. I'm going to want to use the watch helper from Reactive Utils. And I've got a couple of states I'm using here. I have one for the view model. That's this one here. And I have one for the status of the view model, whether or not it has the ability to zoom in or zoom out, meaning that I've hit the max zoom or the min zoom, right? And I want to disable the buttons at that point. Not critical, really, but if you want to kind of recreate some of the functionality of the widgets have in your own UI, this kind of thing you probably want to use, right? And then those are being used in the actual UI here. You can see I've got a click method that's going to call the zoom in, zoom out methods, and it's going to have a disabled property that's going to be set based on whether or not the view model says it should be disabled or not, right? So the first use effect here is going to be based on the view, right? So if I have a view, so let's do this. If view, right? It's basically, if I have a view available for me to use, I need to set the view model. So yeah, set VM, and we're going to say new zoom view model, and we want to pass it the view. Right, so now I've created my view model. My view model is available, right? So I've updated that VM property. That means this use effect is going to kick off now because it's gone from being null to being something. I've updated the state. So that means this use effect will kick off. Now this use effect, I want to do a couple things, and they may not be totally necessary here because of the application isn't a multi-page application. I'm not changing routes and removing components and stuff, but it's usually helpful to do where you want to, if I'm watching for property changes, I want to make sure I clean that up somehow in a cleanup method. So I need a handle. So we're going to say, give me a handle, and it's going to be typed to Esri dot. So just handle, watch handle. And this is one of those type properties that you can't import from anywhere. Usually you can import types of classes or modules or something, but you have to pull this one off the global underscore Esri. Some point we might be able to figure out how to expose these as types you can import somewhere instead of having to use a global namespace. But for now, you can just use a global namespace. And then what I'm going to say, like usual, I'm going to check to see if the view model is actually something. Right, it's not just null. Then I'm going to do something here. I'm going to say the handle is going to be equal to watch, right? And in here, what I want to do is I'm going to have a method, and this is going to watch for, I only want one watcher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this an array, and I'm going to watch for VM dot VM can zoom in, and VM can zoom out. Those are two properties here that are going to be on these view model for the zoom widget, right? So if those change, then I'm going to get this function in reactive utils will kick off. So then I'm going to set disable zoom in is going to be equal to the VM dot can zoom in. Yes, that's right. And then we'll just switch this one up to the zoom out. All right, so can zoom out. All right, so now, yeah, that's right. That's what I want to do. So if blah, 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 and I want to return from this use effect, return a anonymous function. This could be my cleanup method, and it's basically just going to say handle, and this could be null, but if it's not, we'll call that remove method. Okay, bam, that should do it. Give me a little cleanup here. All right, so now if I come back over here, cross my fingers, everything is disabled. Why is it all disabled? Hold on. All right, hold on here. Let me just do a little debugging. Can zoom in, can zoom out. Hold on. Ah, you know what? I bet you. I'm going to try something here. There we go. That's weird. It wants me to... Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah. If it's zoom in, can zoom in is false, but I want to disable... I have to do the opposite. The way... Yeah, I kind of did this weird. Because can zoom in... Yeah. I mean, if you get what I'm saying here, if I want the zoom in disabled, it should be true. But can zoom in will be false in the view model. I need true back. You know what I'm saying? So I need to flip it. So okay, so now I should be able to zoom in just fine and zoom out. All right, sorry, that was a little. I was like, what am I doing there? Okay, so next one it'll be the home widget, and this should be fairly straightforward, kind of like we had before, right? There's only one method on home, and that is go. So go home, Roger.
Go home, Roger.
Right, you know what I'm saying? So again, if view. You know, if you do this enough, it might be wise to make like snippets for this stuff, but I'm not doing it enough. Let's say new home VM, and we're going to pass an object with the view. And there we go. So now it's refreshed. And let me go ahead and zoom over here somewhere. And I want to go home. Zoom in, go home. Zoom in, go home. You got me? All right. Now, a fun one is going to be the compass widget, right? So the compass widget is a little bit more involved. It has a rotation, right? So I can't, the icons and stuff I'm using in React don't have a rotation property. So what I need to do is I need to do some CSS transform for the rotation. So, okay. So basically what I did here, look, I already had this, I left this in here. So I'm creating the compass view model. If I get a view, notice I have one use effect for that and a different use effect for the VM. I recommend you do this kind of thing, right? So if you have work that you do in a function that doesn't have any other dependencies, then one thing, only have a use effect for that one thing. If you have work for something else that's not dependent on the other thing, then do it there. This avoids me having to do a bunch of if-else statements in one use effect. Ain't no shame in having multiple use effects to do your work in React, right? So okay, so this one's gonna suck. So I need another handle. It's not suck. It's not typing, man. All right, so Esri dot, what is this one? Watch handle. Oh, come on, watch handle. There we go. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to say that if VM, oh, come on. And handle is going to be equal to watch. And I have a function here that is going to, what am I interested in? So this, oops, sorry. So the compass view model actually has a property I want. So let's come over here, just so I can show you. This is how I did it when I'm looking at it, or how you should be doing it. I just happen to know already what the properties I'm interested in are. So, that's why I didn't do it. I must have had this cached because it came right to it here. Orientation is what I'm interested in. I don't really care about the state, for my use case. But orientation is what I want. And it's an object. This is key. An object that has X, Y, and Z on it. Right? So I need to watch for the whole object to change. And when it does change, I need to do something. What do I want to do? I need to set the orientation, right? I have a setter for my state there. It's currently at 0. And I need to set it to the VM orientation.z. And handle is assigned but never used because I need to return an anonymous function. And it's going to be a handle that could be null at that point. However, it's not null. Oh. All right. And then when I click on it, I want to call the reset method on it, right? So if I come over here, it's only got one method that you'd be interested in, and that is the reset method. So if I come over here and start rotating this sucker, you can notice that the compass rotates with it. So you can get like a super fancy north arrow in there if you want. Click it, and it resets the orientation for it. And bam, that's it, man. Look at that. It's a work of art, I'm telling you. And now the context is available because I provide this map provider to the entire application. Now this pattern of providing providers and stuff in React applications is nothing new. There's like a joke about how some enterprise React applications have this like super nested list of providers and little app down here, and it's got this huge nested providers in there, which, you know, I get it. It may not look good, but if you're building a React application, you might have a provider for your UI components, for your theme, for your mapping library, for your charting library, for your authentication, maybe for logging, maybe for some other weird nonsense. I really don't know what you're doing, but you know, it is what it is, right? Uh, People think see it as a con against React, but you know, it just is what it is. If you didn't do it that way, there'd be some other weirdness that you would do to provide some kind of top level global or something like that, or some other kind of state management bit that you would do with Redux. You know, would handle this without having to have all those providers and stuff in place mostly. I think I have to revisit Redux. Anyway, but now you get the idea. You can provide your own provider and provide access to your map view. You can have layers that maybe parts of your application are interested in. Your components you write is available to all those components. And you just need to use the React use context to get access to your context in your application. Super simple and easy to do. I think the context API that React has works really nice. It's part of React. You don't need a third-party library or anything like that. And if you can get away with it, then feel free to use it. And if you find that you hit some limitations, maybe it's time for you to move to Redux or MobX or some other state management library. There's a couple of newer ones that I don't really know too well. So try it out and give it a shot. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you very much.